Hola amigos! This week I was quite busy with life, so today I bring you a short tutorial about an effect that some of you have asked about, but I've also seen it requested in places like Reddit and the Unreal forums. And that is how to achieve this choppy animation style that we can see in movies like Into the Spiderverse and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. In cartoons, this has been traditionally called animating on 2s or 3s, etc., and this refers to the number of frames that each drawing is held for in a sequence. For example, if this character was animated on 2s, we would need to redraw its pose once every 2 frames, and so on. In Unreal, most of the animation tools and features work in reference to time, meaning that if we really wanted to recreate a 100% accurate version of this effect, we would need to recode some low-level portions of the engine. So instead of that, I'll show you how to change the animation settings to make a pretty decent version of this effect. And as you can see, this is only applied to the character, and the rest of the world, including particle systems and physics, still run at the normal frame rate, which in this case is around 120 FPS. And now, without further ado, let's get started. Here we have our character still animated smoothly. Now, in a big production, you would start this process with an animation set that was already created at the desired frame rate, like 12 frames per second or something like that. In this case, let's assume that you already have some animations and you just want to make them choppy. We are going to start by opening the animation blueprint so we can easily locate all the animations that our character is using. In this case, we have 3: idle, running forward, and waving. Let's open the running one. Now, by default, we can see it's very smooth, and let's pause it for a moment. We can see that if we move the timeline between frames 0 and 1, we still have a very smooth motion. And obviously we have only keyframes in these points, but the engine is interpolating the skeleton between those, so we get this very smooth effect. Now let's start by changing the import settings. So here we see that it's using the default sample rate, which samples the animation, the original animation that we are importing, at 30 frames per second. So let's uncheck that, and now we can use this custom sample rate. By default, it's set to 0, which lets the engine calculate what's the best sample rate for this content, but we want to set it to 12. Now, if we re-import the animation, we are probably going to get an error, and that's because the animation length, which is 0.7 seconds, is not divisible by 12, or is not compatible with 12 frames per second. So let's check this box that says snap to closest frame boundary. We do that, then re-import, and now it works, and we see that it had to crop the animation length or change the animation length to match this 12 frames per second. So instead of being 0.7, now it's 0.667. That's fine, but if we hit play, now that we have way less frames, now it's running really fast, but it's still being interpolated. So let's go up to the top and change here on interpolation from linear to step. And now if we scrub the timeline, nothing changes until it gets to 1. Then it gets to the next pose, then 2, and so on. But it's still running really fast. So let's change the rate scale, maybe from 1 to, in this case, 0.3. Now press play, and now we have a pretty good illusion of motion, but at 12 frames per second. Perfect. Now let's do the same on the other 2 animations. Okay, I updated the 3 animations. Let's give this a try. Hit play, and there we have our choppy animations, including our wave. But I don't know if you have noticed. Let's see it again. It's really hard to see. Let's see it again in slow motion. So here we have our idle pose. Look at his arms. And before it starts running at 12 frames per second, it's still smoothly interpolating or blending between both poses. And the same happens if we do the salute. Now to fix that, let's go back to our animation blueprint. Let's take a look at any of these transitions, for example the one between idle and waving. Here on the blend settings, we can see that it's set to a duration of 0.2 using this cubic in-out curve to blend between both poses. So first I want to change the duration to make it a bit more snappy, so maybe 0.1. And next, let's take a look at this curve. So what it means is at the bottom we have one pose, in this case would be idle, and at the top, or at value of 1, we have our waving pose. And as we can see in this curve, is blending between both of them very smoothly. What we want is to stay at 0 until maybe half, where it changes to instantly to a blend between both poses, and then stay also constant at that value until the end, where it changes to the second pose, or what is also known as a step curve. Now, if we go through the presets, there's nothing like that. Maybe the quintic in-out resembles a bit like that, but it's still very smooth in these slopes here. So let's start by changing it to custom, and next we're going to create our own custom blend curve to plug in here. So open the content browser, right click on it, and let's search for curve. Now the type of curve that we need is a curve float, so select that, give this a name, maybe curve anim step, and let's zoom it out, and we need 3 points, so middle mouse on the curve will create a point, so we want one of these points to be at 1, 1, so here it is, 1, 1, this one will be at 0.5, 0.5, there, and this one stays at 0, 0. And now we have a linear curve, but if we select all the nodes and change the interpolation to constant, so here we have the different interpolation modes, select constant, now we have our step curve. So the pose will stay at the original pose until 0.5, then it changes to a blend between both of them until the end of the transition, where it changes to the second pose. So let's save it, go back to our blueprint, and now we can drag our new animation from the content browser to the custom blend curve property. Now compile and save, and I don't want to repeat these steps on all of these transitions, so let's promote this one to a shared one. We can call this transition step, and select this shared transition on all of the other ones. And now let's compile our animation blueprint, save, and give this a try. Okay, here we go. And it seems to be working, but the true test will be to see it in slow motion. So here we have our idle pose, and yeah, it takes a couple extra choppy frames to transition between both poses. Let's see the wave. Again, those 2 extra frames. Excellent. And there you have it. That's how you can re-import your animation content to make it look choppy or have a reduced frame rate. And I hope that you guys and gals enjoyed this video. If you did, please consider giving a like and subscribing to the channel. And if you have more questions or suggestions about future tutorials, let me know by posting in the comment section below. See you next time!